because Facebook, I think, is lying about targeting 13 to 15-year-olds. So here's my message for Mark Zuckerberg. Your time of invading our privacy, promoting toxic content, and preying on children and teens is over.
Facebook over and over again has shown it chooses profit over safety. It is subsidizing, it is paying for its profits with our safety. I'm hoping that this will have had a big enough impact on the world that they get the fortitude and the motivation to actually go put those regulations into place.
Information is the key, and judging by Mark Zuckerberg's face after CBS 60-minute blockbuster interview, this war is getting ugly. No one is safe, not even the NFL and John Gruden. 4th down and 10 to go. This is the original Gangster Power Hour podcast. Democrats are now a happy bunch thanks to Mitch McConnell. Or maybe not. Fox News teaches not to wear a mask and not to take the vaccine. On the other hand, CNN is advertising the complete opposite. Somebody has to lead the way. One network must come out on top. Who's gonna reign supreme and who shall sink in the abyss of disinformation? Until then, we are most definitely at war. Hey, happy Thanksgiving everybody, and welcome to another edition of the original Gangster Power Hour. Without any further ado, we're gonna try to celebrate this very important moment in our time right now, in those difficult moment in time, of course. We're gonna try to elevate ourselves above the rest of the world. And of course, we're gonna try to fly towards greatness like we always do on this very podcast. So, like I said, it's Thanksgiving. There's a mountain high of information out there that need to be addressed, of course. So we're gonna dissect the latest news and we're gonna try to figure out where this war is heading. Because of course, information is the key word out there. Information is the key to win the war. I'm going to repeat myself. Information is the key to win this multicultural war. There's no way around it, folks. There's so much information out there that it's easy for anybody with enough credential to understand what's going on to get lost. So that means at your very bottom, for those of you guys less fortunate that doesn't know what's going on but want to be informed, you have just tuned in to the top podcast when it comes to this multicultural warfare and this civil war that we are in right now. Let's clear that right from the get-go. It is now interesting to see on how information is being used not only to reach out to the masses, but to definitely send some clear messages to the opposition. which means that the level of tensions is getting high by every single day. That means every single day that we speak. And we're going to look back at what happened the past week. So every single day that passed by in this war, it's like a countdown. Did you hear me out? I said every day that passed by in this war right now is like a countdown. That means a final countdown. And if you want to be more, if you want to know a little bit more about this countdown, I strongly suggest you to go to my website, atotalfailure.com, and you will find all kind of answers, of course, and you will have the opportunity to go through a lot of content related to my book series, of course, The Mass Confusion. And you will have the opportunity as well to look at the countdown. All right? Last week, I mentioned to you guys that we're going to address what's going on with the Big Five. That means the 5 major television networks in the United States. I did a special presentation on CNN and Fox News fabric. Today, it's Thanksgiving. So today's going to be a treat. All right? Today, we're going to look at 2 of the most iconic, if not the most iconic logos in terms of television, and I'm talking about ABC and CBS. Those 2 represent the foundation. Now, when we turn around and look back at what I said about Fox News and CNN, keep in mind that those 2 are 20 years, not a long time ago. You know, we're talking about not even a century, but if we look at CNN, if we look at CBS and ABC, these 2 have way much more history. So we're gonna dig into that, and we're gonna look at their fabric, what they represent, and of course, what's at stake for those 2 channels. So very important, we're gonna follow up on last week's program, which was fantastic. And by the way, it's gonna get even better. Okay, let's jump right in. Last week, we talked about CNN, we talked about Fox News. So right now, I wanna clarify that I predicted last week, in this very podcast, I predicted that there will be some player out there that will make their mark in the next few weeks. And I was talking about MSNBC and Chris Hayes all in. Well, guess what? It didn't took a couple weeks for Chris Hayes to respond to what I predicted. It took literally Chris Hayes a couple hours. And when Chris Hayes was all in, no pun intended. It is a very, very, very vicious war right now between those 5 major networks. So I want you to stay all the way through the end, because at the end, of course, I'm going to present who's got the momentum for this week. I'm going to present the winner of the past week. And of course, we're going to talk about the runner-up, and we're going to talk about strategy on how those networks now going to try to adapt and going to try to lead the way towards the 20 2024 election, which will accumulate into probably the most controversial election in US history. Okay, so this is the intro for the original Gangster Power Hour. It's Thanksgiving Day, and let me tell you something. This is gonna be a good one. So we're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna come back with the fabric of CBS and ABC News. Okay, folks, we're back, and I appreciate that. Really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, when we left the last podcast, of course, we talked about Fox News and CNN fabric, what they were made of, and what was interesting about those two channels. It's not a long time ago. It's very an early history. We're talking about 1980s. 1980. We're talking about 1980 for CNN, and we're talking about 1996 for Fox News. And regardless if it's a coincidence, because I don't believe in coincidence, but I brought that up way before this week. Have you noticed that Fox News introduced a segment regarding their 25th anniversary, which was interesting because on the last podcast, 3rd of October 2021, I brought the fact that the Big Five network in the United States future was at risk, and that was the main subject of my last podcast. And I want to keep on that. I want to keep on that presentation that I did about Fox News and CNN, and I want to bring that now, and I want to bring your attention right now towards CBS. And I don't think there's a better moment than right now to speak about what CBS is made of. Of course, because CBS was front page all over the world, all over the United States this past week. Of course, because their 60-minute interview with a Facebook whistleblower. Now, is it coincidence that I'm talking about CBS in the first place? No, it's not coincidence, because they deserve it. It's far way more elegant to say it that way than to say, oh, it's just because of the fact that they were all over the news. No, CBS deserve all the credit. They took the right moment. Let's dig before we get into CBS fabric and what they're made of. I want to clarify something very important about 60-minute interview. If we look into a deeper layer, we gotta understand out here that those decisions are made by a handful of persons at CBS, meaning that they have to make a decision on when they're gonna air the interview, so that there's no other major news that shadow their top story. So that is a tremendous home run by CBS. CBS just literally got in front of the whole pack. So that means CBS, in one single interview, passed by all the other four contenders, because of the fact that now they're leading the way, they're making the news, and the rest of the pack are just like vultures. They took a little bit of pieces of the interview and they tried to make it a big deal on their network, but we all know that CBS brought the story about Facebook, and it's a tremendous move in this war. It's a home run over the ballpark. It's way, way up in the sky. It's gone, baby, gone. I mean, let's be honest. Any producer out there that runs a program like 60 Minutes dream about the coming out, dream about making an interview with someone like, of course, Frances Hogan. That's the name of the whistleblower, a very, very intelligent woman, by the way. Go check out our Wikipedia. She's a very intelligent woman. Okay, so we're gonna jump in CBS fabric and what they're made of. If we look at the interview that CBS did on 60 Minutes with Facebook whistleblower last week, it tells you on how CBS conduct business overall. Very important. All right. It tells you on how CBS conduct business when it comes to information at that level of the Big Five. So basically, CBS News television program is probably the oldest recognizable that is still recognizable today. It's still standing today. Let's say it that way. They're still standing. So they were founded in September 18, 1927. So that means 94 years ago. We're not talking about 25th anniversary out here. We're not talking about 25 years in the making. We're talking about 94 years of journalism, of news, of television program. It speaks a volume, and it really brings to essence of what CBS is. They're not your new kids on the block. They are the block. You understand what I'm saying? They are the cornerstone of American television, and there's no denying about that. We cannot say other than that. It's a fact. CBS represents the foundation, the fundamental of television, American television, should I say. And we're going to learn a little bit more on why it is so. So if we look at the broadcast history of CBS, it is interesting to learn that the CBS Evening News was the program title for both Saturday and Sunday evening broadcasts. The program title for the Sunday late night news beginning in 1963 was the CBS Sunday Night News. We're talking about 1963 out here. Very important. So we still can relate to that because there is some folks still alive that rely only on CBS because they were brought up at that particular moment in the 60s to watch the CBS Sunday Night News. That's how they were brought up in the 60s. And believe it or not, these people that are, of course, older today are still attached to that history. And it still reflects today on how CBS conduct business. They're less flamboyant all right? But they're very, very professional on what they bring to the table. You know, you don't get halfway, you get a full plate. When we're talking about 60 minutes in the interview they did, it's a full plate. We're talking about something that it takes a little while to digest. Not only that, but all the rest of the media are getting around and licking their chops and waiting to find something to pick on that interview. That is very flattering for the CBS top executive, of course, and the CBS all-around management, because it shows that, you see, that's how you make the news. You don't follow the news, you make the news, and that's exactly what CBS showed the rest of their fellow competitor. Hey, let me take you back to school, CNN. Hey, let me take you back to school, Fox News. Hey, that's how you do journalism. Very important. So that's part of the CBS fabric. I would like also to mention that CBS is very contrasting when it comes to their way of presenting the evening news compared to a channel like Fox News or CNN, right? So they attract, of course, a different audience, but still, it's an audience that is loyal and it's an audience that come back. But not only that, but CBS leads in terms of program. So we're going to look at the depth of CBS in terms of who they are. All right. So I'm just going to try to not fumble the ball all here, because there's a lot of program. So we're going to look at CBS depth. So we got, of course, the main event program, which is the CBS Evening News. We talked about it, 1963. It's a cornerstone. There's no way around it, all right? Then we got the CBS mornings. We got 48 hours. We got the 60 minutes. We got CBS News Sunday morning. We got Face the Nation. We got CBS News Radio. This is a very large and very dynamic spectrum of program. That means that CBS have a depth in what they present to their viewers, and that's why the rest of the media always pay attention on what CBS does. And that's what makes some viewers comfortable with CBS, because they know they're going to get something reliable, something that's been there forever. It's like going back to your Coca-Cola. It's like going back to your Philly cheesesteak. It's that go-to place that makes you feel at home, and that's what CBS represents. Okay, folks, this program is rolling extremely fast. We're on a high-speed track, and let me tell you something. We're gonna keep the best for last, because by the time we finish with ABC Fabric, we're gonna talk about how this war is getting personal by the minute, how it's getting more vicious. Now, it's not only a war about information and disinformation, it's now getting personal to a level where some anchors are trying clearly to engage into some verbal altercation. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about who's got the momentum. We're going to talk about the winner of the past week. Who's the winner? Who's the runner-up? and we're gonna talk about, of course, strategy. So let's take a break, and we're gonna be right back. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, we're back, folks. This is the original Gangster Power Hour, and we're talking about the Big Five. The Big Five future is at risk. Why? Why is that? Because of all the outlet out there that can be accessible in one click. That's why. Of course, when we talk about the Big Five, we're talking about the 5 major networks in the United States. When we talk about CNN and we talk about their fabric, what I mentioned was very important. I mentioned that CNN, all right, made a name for themselves when it was wartime in the 1990 Gulf War. That's when CNN made a name for themselves in this very particular stratosphere, in this particular market, which is the cable news. They made a name for themselves, and they made a reputation among the rest of the Big Five for being the first to break the news, right? Now, we're gonna follow up on that, of course, because in this week's podcast, I'm talking about the fabric of CBS and the fabric of ABC. And I would like to address ABC. What's ABC? What they're made of? Okay, so we're gonna jump right into it because we gotta complete this. Let's be honest, right? We got 5 major networks going at it right now. I just mentioned, all right, they hurting. The market is getting thinner and thinner. That means your overall pool of viewers, that means the people that vote, right? People that vote, people that are aware that there is some politics and that could change their life. Those networks want to address you guys. They want to address you guys on what's going on in a Capitol Hill. They want to address what's going on in terms of policy in the United States. And for that, they want to have your attention. Not only because they have information to provide to you guys, but because there's some money to be made when it comes to cable news. So that is a business, all right? So if someone jump in that market, like let's take for example YouTube or Dailymotion or Twitter or Facebook, those sub entities becomes, of course, they become a rival because they're doing exactly what you're doing in the same market, but in a different way. But it still hurt. They still get had. If you go on YouTube, you get all the ads that you can find, all right? And they're not cheap. They're not cheap to advertise. Now, if you go on Dailymotion, same thing. If you go on Twitter, if you go Facebook, name it. That hurt. It hurt the Big Five in terms of revenue. So when there's less revenue, what do you think it happened? The content is less, of course, polished. So that means they cut corners. And of course, the salary pays goes down. And it hurt everybody around because it becomes disinformation. It becomes a free-for-all. Now, to bring back equilibrium, some kind of equilibrium in that field, in that market, someone has to step up and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be the leading figure, and I'm going to be the one that people should take for the example when it comes for information. That means someone, just like in nature, when there's a wolf pack, there's a dominant wolf that presents himself and say, you know what? I'm the leading. I'm the big, bad, you know what, wolf. And nobody's going to mess around with me, and I'm going to lead my pack, and I'm going to make every single one of you guys the richest. Because, of course, we're talking about money out here. Okay? So, when Mark Zuckerberg get hit right in the face by CBS, what do you think ABC is going to do? Well, ABC has to do something, so we're going to look at what ABC is made of and what ABC represents. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're at war, and I'm here to tell you what's going on beyond what they're going to tell you, because they're not going to tell that in front of the whole world. They are at war. We are in the middle of a culture warfare. I am the man behind this mass confusion, and you are right now tuning in to the top podcast when it comes to multiculturalism and all that is related to my book series, The Mass Confusion. All right, so let's dig into none other than ABC. When it comes to ABC, I'm not old enough to remember when they, when they first appeared. But if I go back into my childhood memories, and I'm not old, but I'm old enough to remember that ABC to me was the sitcom station, was the go-to when I wanted to relax, to be happy, to watch a good sitcom, to watch after that a good evening news. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So that's, in my opinion, that's what ABC represents. Sitcom, comedy, all around. You can find all what you need and more at ABC. Okay? So, yeah. ABC News is the news division of Walt Disney Television. Very important right here. All right? It's called Walt Disney Television Broadcast Network. So ABC is a division of that entity. Its flagship program is the daily evening newscast, ABC World News Tonight. And there's other programs that include a morning news talk show, Good Morning America, for those who don't know. It speaks volume. If we look at the name itself, Good Morning America, this is probably the most iconic name when it comes to a TV show ever. Good Morning America. You don't get any more iconic and more credible than that. That is credible. Good Morning America. It is the go-to, right? Okay, so we're talking about, of course, Nightline as one of their most popular watch program. We're talking about Primetime. We're talking about 2020, Sunday morning political affairs. And this week with George Stephanopoulos. Did I say that right? Maybe not, but that's how I pronounce it. No disrespect. George, you are, in my opinion, you are the latest face when it comes to ABC. Let's not kid ourselves, all right? I just mention their program. And at the end, I mentioned, of course, This Week with George Stephanopoulos. George face is incredibly, he's got, we call that, George face is made for TV. Let's say it this way. I could use another adjective, but I don't know if most of you guys out here gonna understand it. But regardless, he's got some on-screen personality, of course, meaning that when you look at George presenting the news, you look at someone that is not angry. You look at someone that is not, over the top. You look at the perfect picture of someone presenting the news in a very, very ethical way. Very important out here. So, in my opinion, George Stephanopoulos right now is the face of ABC, of course, just like Tucker Carlson is the face right now of Fox News. So, we're gonna go into what ABC, in my opinion, represent. And I talked about, when I was younger, the sitcom. But of course, television, like any other market, evolved. And ABC evolved, of course, when they brought new series and other very interesting television program on their network. That's how they keep their viewers happy. So that means they got a very large range and a very vast, diverse collection, of course, of old and new program that makes it a place to go when you want to watch some old moment. All right, and some new program that are new, right? So ABC, of course, is somewhat the I would say the nemesis of CBS. We look at June 15, 1945. That's when ABS News was founded. That means 76 years ago. If we look at what I presented in regards of CBS, we talked about 94 years ago. So those two are very close in terms of length on how they were brought to the American public. They're old enough to remember a lot of stuff, and their library is far more vast than those of CNN and Fox. All right, so I want to get into the programming of ABC. All right, we did the same thing with CBS, so we're going to get into the current programs. I want to look at Good Morning America. We talked about what was the fabric of ABC. Well, I just mentioned that in my mind, as of right now, if a young public is watching ABC, what they see in their mind is George Stephanopoulos. Because George Stephanopoulos is someone reachable. That means he's not someone mean that's out there to promote things. He's out there to give you the news and you decide what you make it about. All right? Do you understand what I'm saying? We cannot categorize Mr. George Stephanopoulos as a threat, as someone that want to hurt the opposition. But he's doing his job and he's good at it, and he's the face right now of ABC. But if we look at the program, if we look at the programming, if we look at Good Morning America. 1975. That's when Good Morning America was first aired. Was a long time ago. 1975. That's, it represents an establishment. It represents a go-to, and that's what ABC is made of. They don't have 10,000 morning show. They have the morning show, which is Good Morning America. The name said, there's no name that is more recognizable when it comes to morning show in the United States. In my mind, I can be wrong, but Good Morning America, if you don't know that name, if you don't know what it means, bro, go get a brain surgery. I mean, go get your brain checked, period. Now, I want to get close a little bit to what we're going to talk about in the next segment, but I want to close that, of course, by saying that ABC right now is, of course, not the top, but they're climbing there. They're there. Because ABC, what they represent, of course, it's their power of investigation. The power of having a lot of soldiers on the field and having a lot of stories that they can bring to the American public. So that's the force of ABC, and that's what they're made of. Okay, let's say that ABC right now, if we look at ABC is gonna have to maybe, I don't know, get a little bit dirty. So that means they might, if they want to keep share of their ratings, if they want to stay alive at the end of this war, I'm telling you, ABC, George, you're gonna have to roll up your sleeves a little bit and maybe throw a couple punch. I'm just saying, George, it's a war. You're gonna have to get dirty. I'm just saying that, all right? So that's what ABC is made of. Good Morning America, George Stephanopoulos, 2020. They got a diverse collection of program which made them one of the favorite go-to when it comes to the American public. Okay, folks, let's not fall asleep. This is Thanksgiving. We're having a good time. I hope your belly's full. I hope that you don't have a mask on, that you're happy at home, because right after this break, this is it, folks. We're going to get into this war like never before. So we're going to dissect exactly what's going on at this moment in time in this 5-star warfare, in this multicultural warfare at the very top of the American News Network. What's going on? We're going to check out who's got the momentum. Last week, New Day and CNN had the momentum. Who's got the momentum this week? We're going to look at who's the winner of this past week. We're going to look at who was the runner-up. We're going to look at strategy. And of course, we're going to lay the ground for the next podcast. So folks, stay tuned. Don't go anywhere, because we're going to take a break and we're going to be right back.
Incredibly mixed messaging from the Trump administration.
Gangster power.
Congressman, is there any way we can talk about January 6th? I do not do interviews with CNN.
Okay, now let's be honest. Why should you tune into the original Gangster Power Hour podcast every weekend? Because no one out there can afford to give you the right and proper information on how our North American multicultural system works from the inside out for free. No one can talk about multiculturalism like I do for free. Oh yeah, I will talk about my life, what I've been through, and much more. But more importantly, I will put under the microscope all the latest important news.
At least 59 now dead.
It is your right, and it is a privilege for me to keep you updated on what's going on in this world and beyond.
One small step for man,
Original gangster power.
giant leap for mankind.
Okay, folks, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that one. This is a good one. Thank you. Okay, folks, we're back, and this is it. This is the segment of the original Gangster Power Hour that makes it the top podcast when it comes to multiculturalism in North America. There's no other channel, there's no other outlet, there's no other newspaper, there's no other satellite, there's no other algorithm, there's nothing on this planet that can top my podcast when it comes to this multicultural warfare. And I appreciate you guys to tune in. Okay, so we're talking about the Big Five, and we're talking about their future, and we're talking about what they need to do to stay alive and what they need to do to convince you guys that they are reliable when it comes to information. That is very, very important, right? Okay, now, next up, I want to mention the fact that when I present who's got the momentum, when I present the winner of this past week in terms of clip, who brought the best clip, who brought the best news. You know, I'm not judging based on how many viewers watch the clip. I'm looking at the content and I'm looking at the impact overall. That means I'm not looking at the rating in terms of rating based on number, based on viewers. Because you can put a monkey, right? You can put a monkey on top of the Liberty statue, and that would generate a lot of ratings. I'm saying that ratings don't always reflect content. You can have the greatest rating in the world, but that could be crap in terms of what you bring. You know? Okay, so when I'm judging those TV programs is I look on how the host present, of course, is segment on the impact and what it represent overall in this war. So last week when we talked, I left this podcast on a high note, and I'm gonna do the same thing all over again until the end of this podcast. I'm always gonna finish this on a high-end note. What I said last week, I said that New Day with Breonna Taylor and John Bergman on CNN had the momentum. Why? Because everybody else, that means Fox, that means ABC, that means MSNBC, was talking about, of course, the mask and the school board. And that was brought to you by New Day and Breonna Taylor was the host of the past week, of the 2 past week. I mean, when you bring a story like that and it makes a domino effect, it's incredible. They must be happy because they were leading the way until now. All right, now this is every week, every day, anything can happen in the news world. All right, it's a very short thin line between making the news, following the news, and be at the very hand of the news, right? So there's a thin line. One day you can be the news of the day, and a couple hours after, you're nobody. You're irrelevant. Your news, what you just said, is irrelevant. Nobody talked about that, right? So I mentioned about New Day, CNN at the momentum because of what they brought on the table. Okay, so we're gonna jump into the strategy before I announce who's got the momentum and where we're gonna head in the next couple weeks. So in terms of strategy right now, Fox News is not in a very good position. So they try to distract that fact by promoting the 25th anniversary. Oh, what good idea is that? Hey, guys, we're not at our best right now. I can imagine Fox News having a meeting and say, hey, CBS talking about Facebook whistleblower. Breonna, CNN have a close grip on mask mandate and school board and all that so we have to respond. So Fox News is not a good position because Fox News right now they own the road, right? They're not leading, they're not the main leading story. That's what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about news, I'm talking about making the news. I'm not talking about talking about the news like I do, of course, because I'm a critic. First of all, I'm a writer. And everything that I talk about on my podcast is related to my book series. But I'm a critic first. I'm not a news anchor, but I can tell based on, of course, on my experience and based on my overall knowledge of the television business, I can tell when someone makes the news, and I can tell when a network follow the news, which is very important what I just said, because that's how I choose the winner of the past week, based on those characteristics alone. So, strategy-wise, Fox News right now is not in a good position, right? Because they talk about their 25th anniversary. Okay, big deal. Tell me about the fact that, wait a minute. Hey, my little pinky here. Hey, there's somebody telling me that I should play a clip of Chris Hayes. Yes, the runner-up of last week. And by the way, what did I say last week? I said that in my mind, Chris Hayes was getting popped up. That's what I said last week. Well, guess what? We're gonna roll a clip, and that's how Chris Hayes came out of the gate the past week. He came out like an animal, and he came out with a brutal attack on Fox News, what they represent, and their leading main event guy, Tucker Carlson. He attacked Tucker and Fox News, a vicious attack. Let's hear what Chris had to say in regard of Tucker Carlson and Fox News 25th anniversary. Let's roll the clip.
Okay, I'm going to tell you something, and I don't have any inside information or anything, but I know this business, and I got to tell you,
I think Tucker Carlson is going to quit Fox News. Now, hear me out, okay? The Fox News vaccine requirement is stricter than the one proposed by President Joe Biden. Fox is requiring unvaccinated employees to be tested every day. Now, Tucker Carlson has been the most vocal anti-vaccination voice in American media. And unless he just does not actually believe any of the stuff he's saying, and it's all just a craven, cynical act for ratings while he himself is vaxxed and people die needlessly by the thousands, he might just be highlighting all those other people who showed actual courage as he works up his own courage. Because if you truly believe you are suffering under the sadomasochistic heel of a tyrannical employer, even if they are paying you lots and lots of money, even if you don't want people to think you're a total fraud, then you have got to have the guts to call out Fox News or resign in protest. There's no other option. It's the only way forward. You can do it, Tucker. I believe in you.
If that is not a personal message by Chris Hayes, I don't know what it is. It's not like, I'm trying to get in the game. No, that is a sucker punch. Chris Hayes can be mean. Don't take Chris Hayes lightly. I told you, Chris Hayes is getting pumped up. And when Chris Hayes gets into what we call right now the rating war, I think that Chris Hayes will be a force to reckon with. And that's what I said last week. And that's exactly how Chris Hayes responded. He responded to Tucker Carlson when Tucker Carlson presented the fact that courage was the most single important quality that allowed Fox prosperity. Chris Hayes took a sucker punch at it by saying, you know what? Courage, Tucker, I believe in you. It is a sucker punch. It is audacious. And that's what we expect from Chris Hayes. And that's what Chris Hayes was able to deliver. And did he deliver? Right on the chin. I don't know if Fox News is aware of that, but there's a clip on YouTube and Chris Hayes is completely destroying their party, their 25th anniversary. Chris, keep on rolling. Okay, so that was the response that Chris Hayes brought. Now I would like to continue, of course, and I would like to make the bridge of what I said about the strategy. You see, MSNBC, Chris Hayes, all in. They don't have the top news, but they gotta make something happen. They gotta, they're in a war. What they do, they don't have the top news, all right? They don't have a Facebook whistleblower. They don't have the mass anarchy that goes on in the school board, right? School board teacher are afraid for their security. They don't have that lead. What they do, they turn around. Chris says, hey, you know what? I'm gonna make my channel respected, and not only that, but I'm gonna throw a sucker punch at Tucker Carlson. Wham! That must hurt. So, in terms of strategy, of course, that was a good strategy on the part of MSNBC to go after what Fox represented in terms of their 25th anniversary and spoil their party. And that's exactly what Chris did. He played the spoiler. Now, I would like to mention that in terms of strategy, it's hard right now for Fox to lead any kind of story. But I gotta mention, if you go watch an interview that Brett did, Brett from Fox, of course, did an interview with a former border agent. Very compelling. I think that Brett brought something that not at the right time, because that news is passé. That news is already behind us. I mean, the border. Did anyone talk about the border? The border was 2 weeks ago. But if Brett would have brought that when it was hot, Brett would have made the news then, but it's too late now. But I mentioned, it's a good interview. Go watch the interview with Brett from Fox. He interviewed a former border agent. Interesting. Some interesting information out there. Okay, folks, this is it. When we talk about leading the news and when we talk about making the news, this is what this war is all about. It's about having the ability within your resources, because picture all the major networks like a basketball team, like a football team, like a hockey team. They all work together to present you guys the best show and information day in and day out. Now that requires some management. So behind the scene, all those anchors, hosts that you see on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, etc., all those hosts, they have someone behind the scene, of course, that feed them some advice. And of course, there's always a long-term vision for someone, let's say like Carlson, someone, let's say like Jim Acosta, someone, let's say like Rachel Maddow. Those very recognizable hosts are most of the time on long-term contract, which eventually have to be renewed. And that's what's very important. When you hear a guy like Chris Hayes saying to one is fellow, but not really, because they are at war. When you hear Chris Hayes saying to Tucker, but not directly, but Chris is intelligent enough when he introduced his topic. Of course, he claims that he thinks that Tucker Carlson will eventually quit Fox News. Why do you think that Chris Hayes is using that to start with? It's all psychology. He wants to get in the head, of course, of Tucker, and he wants to maybe send the message that, hey, Tucker contract might be coming up. And if Tucker doesn't receive a generous offer from Fox News, is it possible that Tucker will quit and jump ship for more money, maybe on other network? You see on how Chris was vicious in terms of this presentation in regard of Tucker. It was very vicious. It was really mean. It was sarcastic. It had all the element to really hit a nerve. Okay, so if we look in terms of strategy wise, of course, the goal of all those major networks, like I just mentioned, they work as a team, an overall team. So as a team, when you play hockey, when you play football, you want to be the winner. You don't want to go on the field and be embarrassed. You want to be the winning team. You want to be on the winning team. Now, when we come back from the break, folks, because we're going to take the last break right now, we're going to come back with the winner of this past week, who's got the momentum, the runner-up, and we're gonna lay the ground for the next podcast. So I hope you're in for some late night treat on this Thanksgiving holiday, because it's gonna be one hell of a treat. So let's take a break and we're gonna be right back. Okay, folks, we're back live, and this is the original Gangster Power Hour, and this is a very special edition. It is Thanksgiving, and we're gonna finish on a high note, and we're gonna present the winners of this past week in this American news war. So, without any further ado, let's start by finding who is leading the way in this American news war, in this rating war, in this 5-star war so far. It is a 5-star war. It's an incredible war. It's getting more intense. Anchors are attacking other anchors on a personal level. We've got religion embedded in that. We got science, multiculturalism, culture, everything inside in a very explosive bubble. I mean, it is hot and there is a lot of tension in the air. Let me tell you something. Therefore, as the leading and top podcast when it comes to that particular market, that is multiculturalism, of course, I would like to present to you the channel right now who's got the momentum. And as of right now, the momentum is still on CNN side, because everybody right now is still talking about the school board, the effect of the mask mandate over children, of course, and should the DOJ get their nose into what's going on in your backyard school. Is it something that we should, use taxpayers' money to investigate parents and their kids at school? So that's why CNN is still leading the way, but not too far behind. CBS did a fantastic job with their Facebook whistleblower. Let me tell you, they were close to be number one. It is what it is. No cigar, CBS, but you did move up the rank and you did make the news with Facebook whistleblower. Now, I would like to present, of course, the runner-up for this past week when it comes to this American news war. And the runner-up is, believe it or not, once again, Chris Hayes, all in MSNBC. Go check out his video when it comes to Tucker Carlson and Fox News 25th anniversary. It is like I said, a sucker punch. I was expecting Chris Hayes to come out strong at one point in this war, but I was not expecting Chris Hayes to come out like, let's say, Jack Nicholson and to throw an axe straight at Tucker Carlson and Fox News. I didn't expect Chris Hayes to come out of the gate like an animal. But Chris Hayes, for the second week in a row, is the runner-up. That means Chris Hayes is at the top of his game right now. That means he's loosened up. He's getting there in that comfortable mindset. And if Chris' mindset is set on, sorry about that, but I used set twice. I should have not. But if Chris Hayes' mindset is focused on tearing apart Tucker Carlson for what it is and Fox News, be careful, because Chris Hayes is capable of doing it. Okay, so congratulations, Chris Hayes, for your valiant effort, but it was not the main news attraction, and it was not in terms of, being the leading story. So that's why you could not be number one. But the number one clip from this past week, the winner for this week is none other than Brian Sattler on CNN. When Brian talked about the fact that there's a difference between making the news and repeating the news, Brian is bringing a new angle in that war. And keep in mind what I'm saying. This is going to be the topic in the next week coming up. So that means we're the 11th. This is Thanksgiving. This is a special podcast edition. And keep in mind what I said, in the next couple days ahead, this will be the topic of a lot of major news network. Meaning that Brian was smart enough to bring an angle that no one else thought. So that means to diminish the credibility of Fox News. So how Brian was able to do that on CNN? Very simple. Brian took the time to explain. If you go watch what Brian Sattler did when it comes to information, it is very, very well produced and well done and well thought. That's why he is the winner of this week, and that's why his channel, CNN, for a third week in the row, is leading the rating war. He's leading this American news war. Brian, congratulations. You were sophisticated enough to go against the grind and find an angle, a niche that resonate. And let me tell you, Brian, in that clip, we're gonna listen on how Brian is able to diminish Fox News. Let's roll the clip. Before we go, we're gonna listen on how Brian is able to diminish Fox News credibility in terms of making the news. Let's roll the clip.
Whenever anyone asks me about trust in media, I try to ask, what do they mean by media? Because everyone is a member of the media now. The media includes the New York Times and also a no-name blogger. So let me propose to you a different way to think about trust in media. Reporters versus repeaters. Repeaters are the talk radio shouters who tell listeners to hate the other side. They're on TV and radio telling the same story every day. Repeaters are outlets like One America News, which replays Donald Trump's lies on a loop and runs random news packages made by other companies. Repeaters are all over Facebook in hyper-partisan private groups that cherry-pick stories and confrontational memes and make you really rageful. Repeaters are Twitter trolls who anonymously amplify propaganda and try to wear the rest of us down with their repetition. And so much of what they are repeating, so much of the raw material for radio yackers and Facebook posters and all the rest, is from reporters. from the people paid to figure out what is true, not what they might want to be true, but what is true. And here's the important part, okay? There are easy ways to tell the difference between the two, between reporters and repeaters. CNN, for example, has news bureaus all around the world, all over the place, all the red dots. That's a lot of reporting power. Fox, just to show the contrast, has very few bureaus by comparison. They only have reporters in a couple of international locations. So Fox does a lot less reporting and a lot more repeating.
Wow, that is something else. Congratulations again, Brian. Well done. That is a straight through the armor of Fox News. It hurts. Because what Brian just said, or what Brian was trying to, hide or not say out loud, is that Fox News don't have any international reporter, almost. They repeat the news, so that means they're not really credible. That hurt, it got to hurt. That's why CNN is the leading, right now, news channel. They are leading the way. They got the momentum with New Day and, of course, with what Brian just presented. And let's mention that Jim Acosta as well is not far behind, and Jim is really someone you don't want to mess with right now, because if you go watch Jim Acosta talking about Fox News and Donald Trump, it is really hard. I never seen Jim emotionally implicated at that level. So that means Jim is at war, Brianna is at war, CNN is at war. It is an incredible sight to watch. So basically, Brian brought the fact that could we consider Fox News as being a real entity when it comes to journalism? Because what Brian said, of course, is that compared to us, Fox News don't have any real reporter on the ground all across the world. Of course, it is very brutal to say that, but it is what it is. So I want you guys to reflect on that. But before we go, of course, we're gonna lay the ground for the next podcast. So how Fox News gonna respond to Chris Hayes' all-in attack to their 25th anniversary? How Fox News gonna respond to Brian Settler on CNN attack, saying that Fox News cannot be considered real journalism? How Fox News gonna respond to all the attacks from the left? It is incredible. This is only the beginning, folks. It's gonna get more violent, more brutal by the day. Keep watching, because this is it for this podcast, but I'm gonna catch you up in the next podcast. Until then, goodbye, see you, and have a nice one.